Super Bowl 55 is just a couple of days away, which means you don't have much time left to get those prop bets in, set those daily fantasy lineups for the final football game until September. So shed a little tear for that, but we're going out on a high note here with the Bucks versus the Chiefs. We're going to break things down here from both a betting and DFS perspective, and also answer your questions live here on the air for today. Welcome on into the FanDuel Live Q&A. That's right here on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Periscope channels. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, joined here as always by JJ Zachariason and Brandon Gadula here to break down their favorite bets and DFS plays for the Super Bowl. JJ is the editor-in-chief of numberFire and FanDuel. JJ, final show of the year. How you doing today?
I'm good. For some reason, I'm wearing a Panthers hoodie today. I don't know where that. Maybe I'm just excited for them to maybe potentially get Deshaun Watson or something. That would be pretty fun.
There was a rumor today that they offered a first-round pick and Teddy Bridgewater and a future first for Matthew Stafford. So in the quarterback market, trying to get my guy Teddy Two Gloves out the streets, and it's disappointing. You know?
I can't. So I was thinking about that. I know this is not on topic, but whatever. We're just having some fun here.
It's our show. Who cares?
Yeah, whatever. So I was thinking about that. If they really gave, I feel like the 8th overall pick has to be more valuable than anything the Rams gave them, right? Just the 8th overall pick in general, just given the fact that we see multiple firsts traded all the time to move up in drafts, and you know that the Rams picks are likely to be late. The fact that they were throwing around this idea that the 8th overall pick was part of it, and then they're like, oh, and a future first, oh, and Teddy Bridgewater, who's at least a probably bottom tiered starter, high end backup. Sorry, Jim, but I mean, it's also funny that Goff and Teddy are involved here. Those are your two dudes, but
funny for whom?
That's why I think, and I'm not a Panthers fan, by the way. I mean, I don't mind the Panthers at all. I live in Charlotte, which is why I support them, I guess. But I don't see how that report can be super, super real, only because it seems insane that the Lions wouldn't take something like that versus what they got from the Rams, unless they just are completely infatuated with Jared Goff.
Well, here, that's the thing here, and that's the part you're overlooking, is that A, Jared Goff is obviously amazing. So that's why Detroit wanted to get Jared Goff. B, because the Rams are actively getting worse with no Jared Goff on the roster, those draft picks in 2022 and 2023, top 5 picks, clearly. So
if one of those picks is a top 5 pick, I will eat this video.
Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that bet. Someone watching on YouTube who does not know that I'm a Jared Goff stan. Honestly, the people who know that too are like, "What in the F are people talking about right now?" So, but Jared Goff, number 1 quarterback. On that note, let's bring in Brandon Gadula, managing editor of numberFire.com. Brandon, are you here to also take a dump on my favorite quarterbacks?
No, I'm here to talk about some bets I like for the Super Bowl.
In my defense, Patrick Mahomes also was really good in my process coming out of college. From a statistical perspective, Tom Brady, I don't know. I was 8 when he was drafted, so I can't comment on him, but at least Mahomes looked pretty good. We're going to break things down here from a DFS and a betting perspective. Quick reminders, you can see up above me, you can win a ticket into the Sunday Million for the Big Game Bowl DFS contest. You can do so by going to the description over on the YouTube page. Click there. All you do is enter your email. You'll be entered to win. We'll announce the winner here 3:45 p.m. Eastern. So about 10 minutes left for you to enter into the contest for a ticket into the Sunday Million for this week. Okay, so go do that. We're also going to have our betting competition for this week as always. I have a couple of wins so far, so I've clinched at least a tie. Feeling pretty good about that. We're going to go through the way this works is we have 3 bets and 5 total units to allocate for this one. Brandon has heard me.
You wouldn't bring up the standings if you weren't winning.
No, of course not.
This is the thing that's garbage is that I could have easily won 2 of those weeks. The only reason I believe that I lost the conference championship games is because I was an idiot with my parlay with Tyreek Hill's over receiving yardage, and instead of just saying Kansas City money line, I got cute and decided to say Kansas City point margin of 1-13, and then they won by 14. I would have gotten that W, but look, it's my fault. I'm gonna destroy you guys in the Super Bowl, and I think the Super Bowl counts for like 5x a normal week, right?
I mean, only if I win. Like that's the rule. If I win, then sure, 5x, whatever, I don't care. But if I don't win, we're gonna I don't know about that. So we'll go through that once again. Before we go through our bets for this one, though, a couple of comments over on YouTube. This one from Bethany Peters, who says, "My list of quarterbacks that I'm infatuated with is unbelievable." Yes, Jared Goff, Marcus Mariota, like a lot of dudes have gotten benched. Brad Kaya. I liked Brad Kaya a lot coming out. He didn't even make an XFL roster, which is good. So, yes, that is very accurate. There are also some good ones like Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, but like the bad ones are more fun to focus on. Bethany also asked, she said that she heard me say on the heat check that I am not very good at single game. Oh, no, she said cash games are not great for single game slates. To me, that revolves around the variance. Like the more games available on the slate, the better I feel about cash games. That's the reason that I tend to skew towards cash there. I think you can make a pretty strong case for it if you excel in single game DFS. So I think that's worth mentioning. I don't excel in single game personally, so like I can't endorse playing cash for it for myself. Brandon, what are your thoughts on this as far as cash games with single game DFS? Are you avoiding them? What's your overall thought process with that?
It would just depend. Like I would just build my lineups differently. If I'm joining a head to head, you can play Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. That's going to get you a high floor of fantasy points. You can more easily justify a kicker who, these guys will have. So they'll have some floors, especially with the total being what it is. The issue with kickers and optimal lineups and the highest scoring lineups, they don't really have the ceiling. But I mean, you would just build around Mahomes as MVP. Just get in Tom Brady as opposed to someone with high variance like Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce. Consider the kickers. There's some value down at the bottom too here. So it's very easy to do. And yeah, I'm with you. I would prefer. I always prefer tournaments to cash games anyway. But you can just with a tweak of your mindset build some good high floor single game lineups too.
I think the other thing too is that it requires a totally different thought process with regards to single game, because like we talk about in the heat check, where everything about single game revolves around making assumptions, and you can't really do that as much unless the assumed outcome is pretty obvious with regards to a cash game for single game. So like I can't make a lineup assuming that the Bucks roll in a cash game, whereas I can do that in a tournament. So that's another reason why. Is it just a totally different mindset? It's more about value and floor. Whereas for me, I don't like thinking that way when it comes to just a single game, because I know how wild stuff can get. The larger the slate, the more I feel good about it. But for like this, personally, not really for me. So let's talk about this game. Talk about Super Bowl 55. Look at some odds here over on FanDuel Sportsbook. And I want to start things off with you, Brandon, because one of your bets is focusing on the yardage for this game. Where did you find value in those props over on FanDuel Sportsbook?
So I like the Buccaneers to go over 370.5 yards. That's minus 115. I'm going to put 2 of my 5 units on that. I love this type of bet. I would love to have more of this throughout the year, not just for the Super Bowl. Betting yardage would be a lot more fun for me than betting points because yardage is a lot less susceptible to variance, just based on the research, the facts of how big a deviation is in points. And so I like this yardage bet. And you guys mentioned on covering the spread on Thursday that the Buccaneers actually average more yards than this on the full season, but they're actually up to 408.2 since week 9 with Antonio Brown, and that includes week 9 where they didn't really put up a lot of yardage anyway. But the Chiefs have allowed 368 yards per game this season, but they've allowed more than this number in 4 of their past 6. So I mean that alone is pretty close. And the Buccaneers are an elite offense. I think that's a little lost in this game, because the other team is the Chiefs and their offense is so explosive and so good. But the Buccaneers have been, since week 9 with Antonio Brown, it might not be all Antonio Brown's fault, but we've just seen a shift from them in the second half of the season with Tom Brady getting more reps in the offense, the shifts that they've had. This is a very, very, very good offense as well. So I like them to put up yardage. And frankly, if the Chiefs get out ahead and just put up a ton of points, the Buccaneers are going to have to put up yardage. But In order for Tampa Bay to win, they're also going to have to put up yardage. The Raiders beat them with 490 yards and 40 points, not by grinding out the clock. Like, I think there's no phoning it in if they fall behind. So I don't know how the scoring is going to go for Tampa Bay, but I love this bet over 370.5 yards for the Bucs.
And JJ, this is one you talked up on covering the spread last night too. And one of the thought processes, something Brandon alluded to there, is that you have multiple paths to this one going over, which I think is super valuable in any market, but especially here for sure.
Yep, absolutely. I agree with Brandon. I mean, I think that just like basic arithmetic shows you that this number should hit over. I mean, at least probability wise, and I think that the value is definitely there.
I also think it's interesting to see the gap between the two teams. The Chiefs' offensive yardage total is 429.5. The under is shaded heavily, and then the Bucs is 370.5 with even on both sides. So I think that's noteworthy in a matchup I would expect to be pretty evenly matched between these two teams. Now, JJ, your first bet for our competition here for the Super Bowl is actually one of the traditional markets. I like it. What are you seeing in the traditional markets for this game?
Yeah, so this number has dropped a little bit, but I do like the under still in this game. I had it at, it was at 56.5 for a while. Now it's at 55.5. I'm going to put 3 units on that minus 105. And the main reason is, first off, we often see, anecdotally, some slow starts to Super Bowls just generally, just because, teams are feeling it out a little bit. I mean, there's that statistic that's going around how Tom Brady hasn't scored a touchdown in all 9 of his Super Bowls that he's appeared in, which, take it for what it's worth. But I think it at least tells you sort of the way these early games go. And then as a result, you might feel a little bit better about the under in general, just because that's a whole quarter or at least a chunk of the game, where they're not necessarily, going full force. But regardless, I like the under because, I mentioned this on last night's show, but I think that you can pinpoint things that these defenses do that can limit the opposing offenses. I mean, the big storyline that's probably going to end up being the thing that changes the game and really changes the result of the game is how Tampa Bay's line does against this banged up Chiefs offensive line and what happens in the trenches there. And so that's a matchup that Tampa Bay is definitely favored in. They were 3rd best in pressure rate this year. Kansas City obviously is going to probably give up a little bit more pressure than they traditionally have. The thing is, though, that you have to hope for is that I don't know if you can hear my dog barking in the background right now. He's going absolutely nuts.
Henry does not like the under in this game.
Yes, and he might not stop barking. But yeah, so the reason, with the Chiefs, I think that the one thing I will say, and this is part of the reason why I still like the Chiefs to win this game, is that you can scheme around this. You know that your offensive line isn't full strength. So you can at least work around this and do what the Chiefs do, which is throw the ball horizontally a lot, right? That's what that offense really does, is get a lot of yards after the catch, put the ball in their playmakers' hands. That's why they have so much speed in that offense. That's why they went out and drafted Mecole Hardman a couple of years ago, because that's what this Andy Reid offense does, getting guys in motion, getting them the ball. So there's that advantage though in the Tampa Bay defense, but then I think there's an advantage with the Kansas City defense as well, where they've been fairly bend but don't break, and they have been above average at allowing big plays. And this Bruce Arians offense is one that's predicated on making big plays. They throw the ball deep at a higher than average rate. It's dropped a little bit now that Tom Brady's there instead of Jameis Winston. But even still, they were 3rd best in the league this year in creating those 15 plus air yard completions. And Kansas City was decent at stopping those. So I think that, each defense has something going for them. So I'm going to just take the under here because I think that people are, understandably enamored with the two offenses that are facing one another. But that's creating a little bit of value on the under.
Yeah, I think that's it's also too, we just think about these teams, we think about the offenses, and I think that definitely is the reason why this total was so high to begin with, and we've seen it coming down for good reason for sure. Let's move on here and talk about another prop that Brandon has, and it revolves around analysis you did for numberFire.com, a fantastic website for you to check out, talking about the way things may break early on based on tendencies for teams with the coin toss. What did your analysis find, and what does that lead you to from a prop perspective?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the Buccaneers to score first. That's minus 106. I'm going to put 2 units on that out of my 5. Like you said, I wrote about coin toss, and kick deferral tendencies for both teams on numberFire, and found that the Chiefs deferred all 8 of their coin toss wins this season. The Buccaneers had deferred their first 6, but they chose to receive the ball in week 16 and 17 when they won the coin toss. They've lost all 3 coin tosses in the playoffs, but in those 2 games when they did take the ball, they scored first. Surprisingly, the Chiefs have scored first in only 7 of their 18 games. Probably has a lot to do just with the fact that they don't take the ball first, but they are clearly okay with that. They defer, every time they get the chance, they've deferred. Most teams do defer, but the Buccaneers have also scored first in 10 of their 19 games, which is just above half. But there's a lot of reason to think that the Buccaneers offense is on the field first, and that's going to give them just naturally more chances, because it's not about scoring the first drive, but it's just extra chances to score first. So I like Tampa Bay to get out to a pretty solid start. From there, I don't know. But I want the Buccaneers to win because I have a preseason outright on them. But I feel good with the Buccaneers in the early game based on the tendencies I found here.
And I think that analysis sends us into our player props too. And Daniel Lindsay, friend of numberFire, is on YouTube and says he's here for the prop bets. Let's talk about some player props here for Daniel as commemoration of his time at numberFire. Talk about some player props. And JJ, one of your player props potentially is tied into Brandon's analysis, finding that the Buccaneers may be more likely to get the ball first. What stands out to you there?
I'm combining both of your approaches here with taking Leonard Fournette as the first touchdown scorer at plus 1,000. And the main reason is what Brandon just alluded to with the probability of the Bucs getting the ball first. But it's not even just the Bucs getting the ball first. It's the fact that, they then have a higher probability of just getting more drives early on, et cetera, because it's not like the Chiefs are a lock to score a touchdown first either. But and then I'm looking over to Jim, because Jim throughout, the last few weeks on this show is always touting the underdog
unsuccessfully.
But it's sound logic, right? And then on top of that though, too, Kansas City has traditionally and notoriously just started games off a little bit slow. We saw that against Buffalo. We saw that a lot last year in the playoffs. We saw that last year in the Super Bowl. There's a chance that we see that again. And that means that Tampa Bay's taking advantage. And if Tampa Bay's going to score a touchdown, I mentioned Mike Evans on yesterday's show. I think that he's a good go-to just because, third best in targets within the 10 last year. We know that he's a great red zone threat. He's a safe bet. But given Lenny's usage, especially usage close to the goal line over the playoffs, I think that he's a safe bet too. And then also the fact that that's how you can beat Kansas City is on the ground, or at least, they're not very efficient at stopping the run. I shouldn't say that's how you beat them, but they're not efficient at stopping the run. So Fournette should be able to find some space there. So I don't mind Fournette as the first touchdown scorer. I'm going to just be my next 2 bets a little bit more D-gaffy after going with the under with 3 units.
I have a similar read on Fournette, and I want to talk about why that read is at the front of mind for myself as well, and how that translates to betting here. Do you want to announce first, though, our winner of the Sunday Million contest? Well, hopefully the winner of the Sunday Million, but the winner of the ticket for the Sunday Million, that goes to Chris Barbado. Chris, congratulations. I hope things go well for you on Sunday. Use that ticket well. Hopefully things go well for you. And actually got a question about that single game roster from Carter over on Facebook, asking, how does a Pat Mahomes MVP, Kelsey, Hill, Jones, Brate lineup sound? Carter, I would caution you that Cameron Brate did not practice Friday. He hurt his back on Thursday. Can relate. It's not fun. That's scary for me. I loved Cameron Brate earlier in the week, and I talked about him on Heat Check a lot, talked about him on numberFire. As a guy I wanted to target, I'm wary of that now. And we'll come back to that with another one of Brandon's bets, but I'd be wary of that. And also, I am not super into Ronald Jones, which brings us into my first bet here for the Super Bowl. We're going to take advantage of the same game parlays over on FanDuel Sportsbook. And you have to keep in mind that the people running FanDuel Sportsbook are not stupid. They know which bets are correlated, and they know that if I want to bet one, the impact that it has another bet. I still think there is an advantage to taking correlated bets and trying to use those together with this same game parlay. Want to go back to JJ's thoughts here because he likes Leonard Fournette. I do as well. Now, the scary thing is Fournette's rushing yardage total keeps coming down. It's down to 46.5, but I'll take it. I'm not going to overthink things here. My read is that Fournette should be the lead back for the Bucs in this game. I'm going to stick to that. So I'm going to take Fournette over 46.5 yards. I'm going to scroll down here to Ronald Jones. His rushing yardage prop is going up. Good. We'll take the under here at 37.5. Hopefully the markets are wrong here, but whatever. We're going to go with this one. Parlay those two together and then toss in anytime touchdown score for Fournette. Now, this one has not changed. It's still plus 125 here. So we're going to get this at plus 586 for the same game parlay on those. The reason that I feel pretty good about this is that heading into the conference championship, Ronald Jones was fully healthy. He got a full practice in on Friday. Did not matter because he still had a worse role then than he actually had during the divisional rounds. That's why I'm curious as to why we're seeing markets move against Fournette in favor of Ronald Jones. My read on this is very different, but I feel good about my read. I don't want to have the market flow or the money flowing in this market, scare me off of what my process says, what my analysis says. My analysis says to be at high on Fournette, low on Ronald Jones, and I'm going to stick with this one. So that's what I have here for my same game parlay. Fournette over 46.5, Jones under 37.5, and then a Fournette anytime touchdown score. Similar line of thought here does go here for the Chiefs backfield because you kind of have to make some extrapolation and decide, okay, who is going to be the lead back here? Ambiguity can be bad, but it can also lead to opportunities. And both JJ and I have some thoughts here on this Kansas City backfield. JJ, I will start off with you. I want to hear your read on the situation, then I will give mine. We can go through these bets here. What is your bet and why are you on it?
Yeah, so my final bet today is taking CEH over 17.5 receiving yards and parlaying that with Darrell Williams under 28.5 rushing yards. So there's a lot of layers to this. I think that what we're going to see with Kansas City is a pass-heavy approach because we see that with teams against Tampa Bay frequently because they can stop the run so well, and it makes sense. And then if you look back at that Week 12 game, where the Chiefs they played very well in that game. They had a 91% win probability after the first quarter. But in that game, in neutral game scripts, they had the heaviest pass rate of their season against Tampa Bay. So I'm expecting them to be a fairly pass-heavy team in this Super Bowl, which makes sense. So as a result of that, you're probably going to see a little bit less rushing, you're not going to get that volume. And then with CEH back and healthy, I feel better about him gobbling up the backfield share there because in the regular season this year, when he was healthy, he saw about 70% of the team's running back rushes per game on average. So, what I'm looking at here is, if CEH is going to hit the over on receiving because I think they're going to be pass heavy, then that means he's going to be on the field. And that means that Darrell Williams is not going to be on the field. And don't forget, we don't know exactly what's going to go on with Le'Veon Bell at this point, but if Le'Veon Bell is active or playing, I just don't feel super, super confident about Darrell Williams' role in this game. Now, objectively, I think that Darrell Williams has played just as well, if not the best running back of anyone on that team this year. So I do think it's smart and rational coaching would say, give Darrell Williams the ball a little bit. But CEH has the pass catching chops, and I think they're going to be pass heavy. So I'm going to just connect that because there is a nice correlation between those two players.
And CEH, too, was still on the field a lot in the conference championship. Yes, he outsnapped Darrell Williams. He ran 7 more routes than him, according to Pro Football Focus. 4 of those were out wide. So part of JJ's same game parlay here is Clyde Edwards-Helaire over 17.5 receiving yards. I like the same. That's actually one of my straight up bets. I'm going to put 2 units on the over for that one. Over 17.5 for a lot of the same reasons JJ mentioned, like just schematically, like you want to attack the Bucs through the air. We saw them use Clyde Edwards-Helaire as a wide receiver for 4 plays or for 4 routes against Buffalo. He should be healthier now. He's been a full practice guy this entire time. So I think that CEH over 17.5 yards, pretty enticing to me. Now, we talked before about Cameron Brate and the injury status of him. Again, he's questionable, didn't practice Friday. That stinks because I like him a lot for DFS. But Brandon, it also ties into your final bet for this game. With Brate being up in the air, looks like you were on the Gronk train as he's back in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I was not really in on Gronkowski when we talked on Thursday for the Heat Check, just about his prospects in general. But if Cameron Brate did not practice Friday, and that changes everything for me with Gronkowski. So I like a same game parlay here with Gronkowski over 30.5 receiving yards. and to score, not first score, but just to score. That's combined for plus 322. That's my final unit here. So I've really shifted on Gronk, like I said, without, with Brate injured, not practicing Friday. And we've seen Gronkowski play at least 74% of the snaps in all 3 playoff games. He played 98% in the conference championship. Now, he has to run routes, of course. The snaps alone aren't enough, but he ran 18, 19, and 23 routes in these 3 games, according to Pro Football Focus, has 4 red zone targets in that 3-game sample. And it just is a really good matchup for the Buccaneers tight ends. That's partially why you were on Brate. But the Chiefs are 3rd in target success rate allowed to wide receivers. We know they're tough on the outside. They're 5th in expected points per pass attempt allowed on the deep ball. So tough on the outside, tough on deep balls. But they're 28th in target success rate allowed to tight ends. So I like that matchup. And these are all small samples, but the Chiefs have been very vulnerable in the red zone to tight ends. It's 20 targets, but they've allowed 16 catches, which is 80%. That's a league high. The league average is 60.6%. And they've also allowed a touchdown on 45% of those targets, which is the 4th highest rate in the NFL and well above the average of 31%. So with, Brate not going to be 100%, I feel like even if he plays, he's not going to be 100%. Antonio Brown may or may not be 100%. I know he got in a full practice, but the matchup and the opportunity for Gronkowski to hit these pretty reasonable numbers is something that I'm looking to take advantage of this week.
Yeah, Gronkowski, I think $6,500 on FanDuel. I'm going to talk DFS in just a second, but I think that does amp up the interest in him quite a bit. My final bet for this one is going to an alternate market. There's a typo that says Christ Godwin. We're going to go with him to go over 80 yards. It's plus 118. I think the typo here actually bodes well for Chris Godwin in this game. Brandon was talking about the matchup for the tight ends. That effectively is the Chiefs just not being as good against pass catchers over the middle versus guys on the outside. We saw them do pretty well against Stephon Diggs and John Brown in the conference championship. I don't think that Mike Evans will be as successful as usual, which means inherently Chris Godwin should get more volume. He had a 26% target share in their first 2 games in the playoffs. That was with Antonio Brown healthy for both those games. So I think this is a good game for Godwin, a good game to go at Godwin and some of his props. And 80 yards, not that high of a mark for a guy who I'd expect to get, 8 to 9 targets. Plus 118, I think it's a very fair number. So I'll put 2 units on that to close out my betting book for Super Bowl 55. I do want to go to a question here over on YouTube from Francis. Francis asked, is it possible for there to be a solo winner on a showdown slate with nearly 1 million entries? Not a complaint. Actually wondering if there has been a solo winner in years past. Now, Francis, it was on a different site, we'll phrase it that way, but a former writer with us at numberFire, Brian Jester, took down $1 million 2 years ago in the Super Bowl. Yeah. So you can do it. It just requires a very unique mindset. Now, Brandon, you've done a lot of research on single game slates, the way to optimally attack them. In your estimation, what are some ways people can deviate from the pack, try to make their ways unique, try to get that unicorn lineup that's not duplicated in these formats?
Yeah, so there are a lot of ways. One easy way to sort of almost guarantee you'll differentiate is to leave salary on the table, and that's not 500 with the way FanDuel breaks out. It's increments of 500 with everyone's salary, but leave salary on the table. If you leave like 1,500, 2,000, not many people are going to be willing to do that. And so that's one way to do it. And as scary as this is, one way, the easiest way to be different here is not to play Patrick Mahomes at MVP, and really not to play Mahomes. But historically, about half of all lineups on FanDuel single game entries roster a quarterback at MVP. They are MVPs about 35% of the time, just in terms of how often they lead the slate in scoring. So you can get some leverage just naturally by not jamming in one of the 2 quarterbacks at your MVP slot. The best leverage historically has been receivers at wide receiver or at MVP. So Tyreek Hill, the tough matchups are there for the Buccaneers receivers, but taking a chance with a wide receiver at MVP, probably avoiding kickers, honestly, just because they don't really have a huge ceiling. But there are ways where you can be different but it's not gonna be pretty, and it's not gonna get you like a Mahomes, Tyreek Hill stack or Travis Kelce. It's gonna be probably assuming, going back to something that you and I talk about a lot, Jim. It's just assuming things. If you assume that like the Buccaneers somehow demolish the Chiefs and you have a 4-1 stack, you're gonna be different. You won't have to waste salary in that instance, but it is one way if you build around like Leonard Fournette at MVP and say, that the Bucs are just going to they're going to be able to run the ball. If you do something like Fournette and Ronald Jones and you say they're just going to commit to the run, that's one way you can do it. Obviously, that's not the most likely scenario for this game, but if that happens, that's how you can take advantage on a single game slate.
And Francis, I would say think of it this way. Like, think of the way you can trim down the number of lineups against which you are competing. So Brandon talked about omitting Mahomes. If you don't play Patrick Mahomes, the number of lineups that could be duplicated is cut in 2/3. Like, he's going to be on 2/3 lineups. I know, like, I can tell you, like, I'm just guessing it'll be at least 6-7%. That's probably what's going to happen. If you don't use Mahomes, then you're down to like a third of opposing lineups. That's a good way to trim things down. Also, like with the Chiefs specifically, because of the way they distribute the football, if you use Kelce and Hill, you're effectively getting most of the production that Mahomes provides, and you're competing against just 1/3 of the field as opposed to 2/3. So I actually think that a strategy I like a lot for this week is using Kelce and Hill, but not using Mahomes and whittling down the field in that way. So, Francis, I think that just actively trying to be different is valuable here because you don't want to chop it up at the top. Like, your expected value is so much better if you have a standalone unicorn lineup. Actively
being different, but what it really comes down to is being okay being wrong, because that's what it's going to come down to. Because everyone's going to have Mahomes, like you said, about 2/3. You have to be okay saying I'm going to be wrong because Mahomes probably way more often than not is going to be the highest scorer. I have him about 40%. Likely to do that. So in addition to everything, be okay being wrong. And the best thing is that, like, when you're wrong, you can say, okay, this means my process was good. It's the ultimate hedge. I was wrong, and therefore my process was good. So hopefully that's helpful there for you, Francis. Okay, so Chanel Newton said on Facebook, go Chiefs. So I got to get you guys predictions for the game. No spread. Doesn't matter. Just pick straight up. Donnie on Facebook is on Tampa Bay. So we got Chanel versus Donnie. JJ, who are you picking? Chiefs or Bucks straight up here?
I think the Chiefs win 34 to – actually, I'm not going to say 34 because I took the under. Chiefs win 27 to 23.
Okay. Brandon, because JJ gave the exact score, you do too. You're welcome. Okay. What you got here?
So my model said like 30-28, so probably like 31-28 in favor of the Chiefs. But really, it's about a 1.5 point spread. I've been having a bit of a crisis because I'm a preseason outright I put on as soon as the Buccaneers got Tom Brady to win. So I got a lot riding on this.
Are you going to hedge?
So if I had
hedge. Hedging is for winners, not cowards.
You're asking me right now to pick a winner. I'm going to say Chiefs somewhere in like that 31-28 range.
Okay.
But I really would be okay if the Buccaneers get this one. I'm
going to price is right, JJ, and go Chiefs 27, Bucks 24.
Wow, cool, man.
Which is right on the spread. So congratulations to you, -3 bettors. You get the push there. But I think that my numbers say it's a very close game. My numbers say under. So we'll check both those boxes and go there. And I don't have to root against Patrick Mahomes. So everyone wins here. That is all the time that we have for today, but we are not done with these Q&As here on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Periscope channels. Brandon is with you every Tuesday, talking PGA, talking betting, talking DFS, talking through his win sims. So make sure you are subscribed to the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Periscope pages to get those questions in as Brandon goes along every Tuesday. I'll have a Daytona 500 Q&A next Friday, the true Super Bowl coming up next Friday. Should be a whole lot of fun. Talking about next Friday, it is actually on Sunday, but that'll be enjoyable. So make sure you subscribe. A lot of good stuff still coming your way here on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Periscope channels. Big thank you to both Brandon and JJ for joining me here for this entire season for these 3:30 sessions, first the snake draft and then with our betting contest. Thank you to both of you. Thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, whose birthday is coming up on Sunday. Thank you and happy birthday to Cal. We appreciate you very much. And thank you for spending your time with us every Friday afternoon throughout this season. Thank you to everyone for joining us here today and this entire year. We appreciate you. Good luck with your DFS lineups and your bets. We'll talk to you again in the very near future. This has been the FanDuel Live Q&A.